All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Biblical Hitmen, folks. My name is Steven, host of the show. Today's guest joining me on this live is Anthony Westgate, and he's got some awesome content, and he's on top of the target with a lot of things, and it's going to be a great episode. We're going to get into, what is manufacturing, an awakening, what is the occult, what is the overlay that's over all of this stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. But folks, if you want to support the show, be sure to head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/the biblical hitman. You can get all of your ad-free early access and group chats over there. Also, you can support the show freely over on YouTube or audio platforms. Just be sure to drop a follow or subscribe, like, share, and comment on all of the things. And if you had a good time, be sure to leave a review, all of that good stuff. The audio platforms are Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, or Spotify. You could find the show there. But with all of that behind us, we got Anthony in the house. What's up, brother? Thanks for joining.
What's up, man? Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, I'm new to X, and so I'm kind of networking a little bit and seeing a bunch of other accounts out there, channels that are on top of this target. This target, in my opinion, is like the occult in our reality, and what is its agenda and all of that kind of stuff, man. So I think you do an awesome job with your live streams and all of that, man. But before we get into the episode, where can the folks check out your content? Where can they find where you post stuff?
I mainly have been publishing on Substack for the past going on 4 years now. So you can find pretty much the entire body of my work there. That's at the reversion.co. That has been kind of my central hub. I'm pretty new to YouTube, actually. I just started streaming over the summer, so still kind of exploring that territory. And so, yeah, I kind of started out just writing articles. Interestingly, it was kind of like on Twitter. So like I was doing these threads. I don't know if threads are even really popular anymore, but people were kind of like requesting that I have them posted in a more archival way. And so, because things get lost after like 2 days. After the algorithm has pushed them out, it's like they're forgotten. So I started writing more long form stuff on Substack and built the email list there. And so, that's my main spot. I'm on YouTube. I'm on X, like you said. There I am there.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I like what you were covering, just recently with the Artemis stuff. And, it's got occult overlay all over it. And shout out to Nick Hitton too. I'm trying to get him on the show.
He's good luck with that. He's a tough guy to get a hold of. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully I can have a conversation with him. And then we got your YouTube here too, where people can check out all your stuff, man. So you like to write, huh?
Yeah, I do. I like to read and write. So I don't think I'm a particularly good writer, but I am a pretty good researcher. So I just kind of like to curate what I'm reading and try to share it in my own words. But yeah, it's a kind of a different type of audience. You have to like that. That's why Substack's pretty good for that stuff, because you're kind of reaching readers and enjoyers of long form content where they are. So the YouTube stuff has been pretty experimental so far, but it's going well. I wasn't sure how 2-3 hour streams doing these deep dives would go, but people seem to like them. So I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah. People are brushing their teeth in the morning or whatever. There's usually like a 45-minute to an hour period before you're actually like at work, And so people like to throw up the long form stuff, man. Have you had any thoughts of like a book or putting together some of all of your work and all that?
Yeah, I am working on a book. It's pretty niche, but it's something that, it's based on my most popular articles. So I've been working on that. It's quite a project, so I have no idea when I'll be finished, but I am working on it. Like I said, I'm not a writer, so a lot of it's like I'm going through all these academic sources, and the list seems to keep growing on all the resources that I have. And so, it's a lot of reading involved and just doing all that work. And so, yeah, I'm not an author, but I'm kind of just forcing myself to do it.
Yeah, I hear you. Since I've been on X, it's a place where you write your thoughts and all of this stuff, and I'm like bookmarking some really good stuff, that where you're in those thoughts and you're just typing. Sometimes they really come out perfect, and so I've kind of like had this in the back of my mind where I'm like, you know what, maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe I could compile all of these things into like one idea, if that makes sense, and
Oh yeah.
maybe come out with something for it, because this stuff is fun, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Talking about all of this, it's not talked about enough, that's why I'm really excited to have you on, man. And so, manufactured awakening is a concept, and you threw it at me today. Where would you kind of begin with this whole idea of manufacturing, an awakening?
Well, to me, it's particularly interesting how in the recent, I would say, last 2 years or so, I mean, really, you can probably trace it back to post-COVID. I think that things became a lot more difficult for the social media platforms, big tech, any websites that are, have content being posted on them, these mass platforms. I think it's become harder for them to control the spread of conspiracy theories, whether or not it's that or them, actually like the algorithms promoting it. Beck, that's kind of speculative, but regardless, it hasn't always been like this. I think anyone who's been on social media for over 5 years knows that there's something going on here where it's like you have all these people waking up. The Epstein files are a big part of this too. So all these, quote, normies are now becoming pretty radicalized very quickly online from the algorithms, where previously it would be this stuff was buried. I use my own Twitter account as an example of this. Like I have 55,000 followers, and it's like I grew that account just from talking about this kind of stuff. That shouldn't be the case. Like in the past, the stuff that we cover, it was incredibly niche. It was like you had to really know where to find it, how to look for it. The search engines would bury it, especially the YouTube search. You get shadow banned for mentioning this kind of stuff. And so what has changed? There's clearly something that, is popularizing this stuff. It's mainstreaming conspiracy theories. We just saw last week, or I think it was actually maybe earlier this week, Piers Morgan had a moon landing denier on his show. He's hosting a serious debate between, a NASA researcher and a famous moon landing denier. Forget the guy's name. He actually did the documentary that I mentioned on my stream, where it's called Astronauts Gone Wild, something Cybel or something like that. Anyway, the point is, this stuff like, and the mass awakening of, or noticing whatever, right, of like all like anti-Semitism becoming more, whatever you want to call that. It's becoming more accepted. It's becoming more mainstreamed. So again, all this stuff that was considered forbidden topics to cover in the past are now being promoted by the algorithm. So that's what I mean by like manufactured, like just something seems off about this. People ask me all the time about this exact thing. They're like, do you think this widespread popularization of anti-Semitism or the Epstein files, like all this stuff is manufactured? And I do. I couldn't tell you exactly how. I could speculate why. But yeah, I do think that there's something there.
Yeah, and my whole kind of theory on it is how Satan's kind of working through both of these forces of good and evil. When you dig into like the mystery schools, they technically are broken into like those two divisions. It even goes back to some of the Atlantis work of some occultists, where there's kind of two groups. One's nefarious, the other one is like the light, or like they advocate for enlightenment, goodness, interconnectedness, and all this kind of stuff. And like you said, with the Epstein files being released, and where all of this stuff now is becoming mainstream, when before it was hidden, it was suppressed, this information wasn't really popular on other, on platforms, right? Illuminati, Freemasonry, and all this kind of stuff. And it's blowing up right now because I feel like it's the bad cop archetype to naturally gravitate people towards a good cop archetype. And it's almost like when I look at the Tower of Babel, when they say that, hey, let's come together as one, let's build us a tower, let's unite under one language, lest we be scattered. It's like, hey, it's like humanity is saying, hey, let's do this, rather than we go back to how things used to be. And I'm wondering if there was some sort of like Gnostic theology a part of that, to where the people became aware of this archetype of a demiurge, and so then it pushed humanity into becoming interconnected and becoming one.
Yeah, I think that, so there's kind of two, I would say there's two occult principles there. The one, kind of what I was just explaining, I think what we're seeing is like the hastening of dialectics. So it's like this purposeful manufacturing or acceleration of the dialectical tension that is very prominent in the esoteric traditions. So, like I was saying, there's always a two sides that are being pitted against each other. And that is very obvious on, specifically on X. I would think maybe I'm not on other social media platforms, but, X is the one where all the dialogue's happening. So you can see it very obviously there, the more time you spend on there, that there's, no matter what the event or discourse is, there's typically two sides to it. And then even the people who are trying to take a more nuanced position are, creating this whole other dialectical discourse about, what side that person is, are they subversive? Are they like, part of the other side, whatever. So, we're seeing that now with, it's all over my feed. I don't know anyone else's, but everyone's feed is kind of just manufactured to their liking. But on mine, it's all what I was just saying earlier. It's all just like, it's now these kind of religious type NASA fans versus the NASA critics, right? It's like that's the new dialectical discourse. And so, there's that. So that is a very important thing for the controllers, the cryptocracy, whatever you might want to call them, to keep people divided. And it's, like I said, in occult, it's a very prominent occult principle. That's the two Masonic pillars. And then what do you have inside the pillars? There's the Shekinah, right? It's like the merging of opposites, the merging of opposing forces. So it's like the hastening of these dialectical oppositions are very important to create a solution within that. And then the other thing you mentioned was, I'm sorry, remind me the other thing.
So, I mean, I know like demoralization is a big part of all of this, and that basically with all the information we're being fed on social media, it's kind of like hard to figure out what's true. I mean, even when we look at Trump and his recent posts on Truth Social, he's like flip-flopping back and forth from like, you get this weird kind of character that people are like, whoa, I don't know, who is this? And then he'll come back and reel people in or something with another post. And so it's like, it's tough for the normal person to understand what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I remembered what the
Okay.
other thing was. You were talking about the Gnostic aspect, and yeah, I mean, there's for with Gnosticism, I think there's we have to clarify the type of Gnosticism we're talking about. That could often get conflated because there you have I guess more like ancient like Valentinian Gnosticism, which is the type that like the early church was dealing with, right? And then um, more something that I think is more probably even more prominent in the modern world, which is like the Eric Vogelin version of Gnosticism, where he kind of gives it a more broad understanding, where it's like the primacy of knowledge as like the highest level of human enlightenment. So it kind of stems from like enlightenment principles and how you can attain this certain level of knowledge that transcends humanity, that puts you in this category of like an enlightened person that has like this esoteric knowledge and stuff. So there's I think probably both going on. And that is for sure the case with AI, with transhumanism, with the digital age. There's a very prominent theme of enlightenment. So it's kind of like in a way it's almost like the logical conclusion of enlightenment thought, and so this is why the space travel objective is so important for these people who are very like defensive, very apologetic about the importance of advancing humanity through space travel as almost like this epitome of American idealism. And so this is something you see right now on the algos, is like they're very rabid right now. They're going after all of these quote moon landing deniers, these space deniers, whatever. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, but how like they should be celebrating. They should be so happy that they're seeing this monumental moment in history, this generational moment of this, this NASA rocket launch, and they finally got back to the moon, right? But what they're doing instead is using the photos that NASA's releasing as like a dunk on moon landing deniers, on flat earthers, and saying like, oh, see, here's the picture. Like, you guys can stop now. Like it's like they live rent free in their heads, and they can't even have their moment without talking about the opposing side, which is very odd to me, because like moon landing denial, if whatever you want to call it, was a pretty fringe conspiracy theory not very long ago. Whether it's, whether there's legitimacy to it or not, I'm very skeptical about it. But regardless, it was seen as a pretty niche fringe conspiracy theory. I thought it was actually kind of a fun one, to be honest, like that. And that was about it. I thought it was just a fun conspiracy theory. But now people are treating it as like this religious thing. And so, if you counter signal the moon landing, you're anti-American, you're anti-West, you're anti, enlightenment, and you don't want to advance humanity to the next state of evolution or whatever. So there's a lot of that going on right now, and I do think that is, to your point, there is a Gnostic aspect to that, probably both in the Valentinian and Vogelin sense.
Yeah. Do you remember? So, first of all, I think the moon landing is a very fascinating conspiracy to dig into. And I have my own thoughts on all of that stuff. If anything, it was one of the topics that me and my wife first talked about on our first date, which is hilarious. And we kind of were like, yeah, no, they didn't go to the moon. But, I digress from all that stuff. They came out with a movie not too long ago, right? They came out with this movie with Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum. which this already kind of looks like some sort of duality of
Yeah.
the energies of some sort, which is funny because the first Apollo mission, I mean, the first mission to space was Apollo, and now the second mission is Artemis, which that's the duality, that they serve in the Greek mythologies, in my
Yeah, they're
opinion.
twins.
Yeah, they're twins,
Yeah.
and so I think they came out with this movie. This came out in July, I think, of like either last year or the year before that. But this is when Bart Cybrell and a bunch of other people the moon landing stuff was hitting really big
Yeah.
platforms, big
That's his
shows.
name, Bart Cyber. Yeah, thank you. I was blanking on his name earlier. That's who I was mentioning, was on Pierce. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this movie was basically about if they couldn't make it to the moon and the mission failed, they were still going to film it and beat the Russians with this whole race to space type thing. And so what are we seeing now? Now NASA, it seems like they got off their butt and they're like, hey, let's get this going. Yeah, we wanted to go to Mars and all of this stuff, but that's really hard to, if not impossible, to make happen. So let's go back to the moon of some sort, just to kind of reel people back into that psychosis, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this imagery is very powerful. Like, not just this, but there's a number of movies like this. The imagery is everything, right? It's like that's kind of how they instill these ideas that become religious in the public consciousness. It's all through symbolism, literally movie trailers and posters, the films themselves, obviously, and it works for the other side too. There's a famous, I don't know, actually I don't know how famous it is, but it's I think either early 90s or late 80s film called Capricorn 1 about the moon landing being staged. And they have the whole film studio and they're showing like what we're looking at here, like the lunar module. And it's like, there's lights being beamed onto it and stuff. So, a lot of it, yeah, it's again, that dialectical tension that you see in mainstream culture that, this stuff is all done through images. And so, even the way that people treat these images that they receive from NASA, from a government agency, as if they are real images, whether they are or aren't, isn't the case. It isn't as relevant. It's more so like they can't, like, no one. It's left to us to like debate over because we can't deny or confirm it either way. And so now, and you have a whole interesting aspect of that now in the age of AI, where it's like people are doubting what they're seeing, even if it's real, which I'm particularly interested in that whole thing, the mass confusion with AI and like people seeing things that are, in some cases, real events that they're seeing, and they're thinking that they're fake because they're analyzing everything that they're seeing with the question, is this AI? And then what are they doing? They're asking an AI to confirm or debunk whatever they're seeing. And so like they're just outsourcing that criticism to the AI itself. So there's like that recursive aspect to it. But I mean, that is all related, I think, to what we're talking about, how the whole mainstreaming of conspiracies, whether intentional or not, it's just causing this mass confusion. No one can figure out what they believe. So it's like, because the floodgates have opened and now all of this information coming at us is algorithmic. It's all random. We don't know who these people are promoting this stuff. We don't know if they're subversive. We don't know if they're actually onto something. And so it's actually become even more difficult to gain any understanding on the reality of what's happening with the algorithms pushing them out in the way that they are. And so like, a recent example of this for me personally was the Charlie Kirk thing that happened. It was like, people were asking me like, to explain exactly what happened as if I had this whole theory figured out. And I actually just gave up on it pretty early on. I was like, I don't think we're going to figure this out. I really don't. Like it's the equivalent of like if the JFK assassination were to happen in the age of AI. And so it just felt like really impossible to figure out what was happening, because the acceleration of all the conspiracies was just coming at you at a rate in which you couldn't even keep up with it.
Yeah, it moves fast. Well, we got a super chat here. Shout out to another dumb meme bro. I love the name. He says, just got out of last presanctified. Pasha is upon us soon. Not
Pascha,
sure.
yeah.
Pascha.
Pascha
Okay.
is or Eastern Orthodox Easter. It's on
Gotcha.
Sunday. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. You know, the interesting thing too, like with this image, I'll throw it back up. And thank you very much for the super chat. God bless you. And you know, the main thing in this photo I see is the moon. And the moon is connected to the goddess through the iconographies and the mythologies and all this stuff. You know, you mentioned earlier the pillars of Freemasonry and Shekinah. And so that tradition kind of goes back, at least from some Freemasonry traditions, that it goes all the way back to the lineage of Cain and Enoch and Lamech, and that Enoch and Lamech basically were the ones that were transcribing this forbidden knowledge from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in my opinion. And they wanted to preserve this information, wanted to preserve it in case of any cataclysm was to happen. And this is Joachim and Boaz, right, with Freemasonry. But one was supposed to survive by fire, the other one by flood, and which is interesting because those are like two judgments that we see that God displays, right, on wickedness, you know, in the beginning of the Bible and at the end of the Bible. So again, Shekinah is like that Jewish mystic version of that female counterpart of God. It's the same thing in Gnosticism as Sophia and so on and so forth. But the moon is in the background of this picture, and so I found that interesting. You know, do you think there's a hidden occult connection with this, with the moon missions pertaining to, in some sort of way, a ritual to the goddess?
I wouldn't be able to comment on this movie in particular. I haven't seen it, but I do think, you know, I did a stream on this about how I suspect what we're seeing is a mass ritual. You know, a lot of these things where these events are happening on the world stage and it seems like the whole world is watching. Those are, in my opinion, in my experience, at least in recent times, if not all the time, have been you can find occult aspects to them that hint at it being some kind of ritual. I use the example of 9/11 all the time. I think that was a clearly an occult ritual. And so I think that, yeah, what we saw, and especially the fact that the names of these missions, as you mentioned, are all named after these pagan deities. Literally, to my knowledge, every NASA mission has been named after some kind of pagan deity. And obviously the planets are named after pagan deities. And you look at the patches and stuff, and there's always this occult symbolism on the patches. And so, yeah, I do think like it was, you know, I described it as like the way that they're doing it now, because they're not landing on it, because of course they don't have the technology anymore, right, to actually land on the moon. So they're doing a procession. They're doing a procession around the moon. That's a ritualistic. I mean, we do processions in Eastern Orthodoxy. We just had, you know, that super chat you just got about Pascha. Like we do a Paschal procession. Like there's nothing occult about a procession, but it happens to be something that you see in occult traditions as well. And so that is like an honoring of whatever is being processed around, right? And so in that case, it's the moon. Yeah. So there's an element of like moon worship to it, where they're going around it, taking all these photos, and then everyone on Earth sees them and they're kind of honoring them or venerating the images of the moon. It's this big achievement, like, oh, this is the most advanced high res photo we've ever seen of the moon. Like there it is. There's all the craters. So people are, stopping what they're doing and just in awe of this, of these images that we're seeing that we're not even sure are real or not. But yeah, I do think that there's definitely like an occult aspect to that. Obviously, I just look at the names like as the hint, right? I always tell people like the reason it's no accident or coincidence that these things are named after these occult terms or these deities, right? It's the same in AI. You see this all the time in AI development, how they're naming the LLMs after these kind of occult concepts, like Grok in itself is an occult thing that comes from a sci-fi book. But yeah, so, and they're all very Gnostic too. They have these Gnostic names to them. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so this is from NASA. This is on X, and these are photos that Artemis took of the backside of the moon, right? That we've never seen before, at least from planet Earth. But it's like hard to kind of really believe all of this stuff, right? I keep options on the table, obviously. Like I'm not like completely dogmatic, that I'm being this deceived. But then again, there's like a little voice in my head where I'm like, yeah, dude, like it's this easy for them. Just look at the technology and the capabilities.
But that's all it takes is what you're seeing right there. That's all it takes.
That's it. And it's perception. And then perception influences, spiritual movement of some sort after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, and this is why people are saying like moon landing deniers, flat earthers or whatever are the dumbest people ever that are like the dumbest people in existence, because how can you explain that? Like they always think that this is the kill shot, like images like this. It's like, how can you just look at that? Like, just look at it, bro. Just look at it. What do you mean there's no, the earth is not a spinning water ball. Like, just look at it. Like you can see it right there. As if there's no response to that. Look, I'm not, I don't identify as a flat earther or anything. I'm more of like I would say like a globe skeptic, if you want to call it that. But, the point is and I think that's a good approach that you have, is to just, not be dogmatic about this stuff, because we don't know, we kind of don't know. And so I think that's where it can get dangerous, is when you get dogmatic and kind of like treat cosmology itself as a religion,
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right, man. We got another super chat. Let's go. This is again from another dumb meme bro. It says, "Yep, the Masons claim that when I was in, we continually reference Yakin and Boaz, Tubal Cain, Solomon's Temple, and the Great Lodge in the sky. They definitely view and call themselves the continuation of the mystery schools." And that's interesting. I didn't know that. Again, I'm not, I've never had any affiliation with Freemasonry or anything like that. And, for people to come out of that kind of stuff and leave it behind them in their lives, I think that what they've learned from Freemasonry, when they come out here and they have a better optic of how to expose it now. It's like they've been reading the playbook for a long time, and then they're like, I don't like this team anymore, I'm going to go on the other team. But now I know when the lineup sets up on the field, I have more of that understanding. It's like understanding mystery school language, and then you can, when you live your normal life, you can see the occult pop out at you, through culture and all this other stuff, just that much easier. And we got another super chat. Oh, another one, another dumb meme bro, throwing it out here. Says, last chat, just wanted to show some love from the Westgate bros to TBH. No, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And, blessings to you. Again, thank you very much. We got my boy Christopher in the chat. He says, "Booyah!" Christopher Cook, thank you, brother, for the super chat. Much love, man. I appreciate everyone that supports what it is we do, and everyone watching from TBH or wherever you're at. Be sure to go on over and support Anthony and his platform and stuff. Everything will be in the description below. Yeah, man, it's an interesting time. with artificial intelligence and all this kind of stuff. What when you see Artemis taking off and you see guys like Michael Knowles and Glenn Beck and how they're pushing this kind of like almost like a new world order vibe where they want the world to kind of come together. What do you see with all of that? Do you see like this moon mission stuff is actually pushing humanity to make a move?
Yeah, there is a ecumenist element to it. Glenn Beck is a very interesting character. I'm not sure if you're aware, he's also a Freemason, Mormon and Freemason. There's videos of him like doing the Masonic handshake with Ted Cruz, who's also a Freemason, and being awarded I think it was either, I don't remember if it was him awarding Glenn Beck or Glenn Beck awarding Ted Cruz or the other way around with a Masonic compass. You can literally find videos of this. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can pull one up while we're talking, but so he's running that. So that whole network, what is it? The Glenn, what is his network called? I always forget. Blaze. Blaze is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, run by Freemason. And then with Daily Wire, it's like Ben Shapiro, obviously. So you have the kind of like quote Judeo-Christian aspect to that, where it's like they're not really, they can't counter signal Zionism or anything like that. Glenn Beck, yeah. Oh yeah, I haven't even seen that one, but there he's flashing
this was just on Google.
Yeah,
he's kind of
I haven't even seen that one where that's interesting with a cardinal there.
Yeah. And the cardinal, is interesting because the cardinal and the stag, to me, and from just some of my research, really connects to the goddess. People will have meditation experiences and they'll see the white stag, but ultimately it resembles Mary Magdalene. They'll see a cardinal, which really kind of means like regeneration, right? Or reincarnation, which then connects to the mythologies of the goddess and her child. And what I've been really trying to share with people on my streams or just with my podcast in general is I'm trying to show people that there is a counterfeit trinity out there, and it's been out there for a long time. And I think that also has something to do with why we see these mystery schools performing what it is that they're doing and all of that.
Yeah.
So you get into this you've done a stream on this too, and you said you call it the digital Panopticon. Did you term that? Did you coin that term?
No, that is that's a pretty old term. That was, I think, popularized to my knowledge by Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. So, it's describing kind of like this kind of like an institution, like prisoners of this institution that are observed by a single entity, a single person, like a prison officer, and they're not. It's like without the inmates knowing that they're watched. So it's like often used to describe like a surveillance state. It's like kind of an allegory of the surveillance state. People use it as. So by digital Panopticon, it's like, it's basically just saying surveillance state. It's like people don't even know that they're being surveilled right now, that all this stuff that we're experiencing is kind of, that's why, like, I look at this stuff and it's just like I think it's such a massive distraction. It's like what's happening behind the scenes while we're all literally looking up in space. Well, we have a surveillance state architecture that's already built around us. We already have whether you want to call it the beast system, being beta tested essentially right now with the digital IDs. So that's something I think is very important to talk about, or at least make people aware of. Again, whether it is, I'm not in the business of predicting what the beast system is. I can just identify stuff like this and say, well, whether or not it's like a beast system, it's not good. It's not leading towards something good. And so that's happening right now. There's all these, I did a whole stream on this. I think that's the one you're referring to, the digital Panopticon, how there's already, it's going into effect in 2027. There's going to be laws, they're already in place that they're going to be instituted next year, starting next year, where on the operating system level, you'll have to validate your, it's starting out with age verification, which seems like not a big deal, right? It's like, oh, maybe it's just a pop-up and you click, yes, I'm 18, or no, I'm not 18 or something, right? But it's the fact that it's going to be, first of all, behind the scenes is this company Persona, who's affiliated with Peter Thiel's company, Palantir, who's building the surveillance state. So I believe it's the CEO of Persona who might, if I'm not mistaken, he was a co-founder of Palantir. And so this is all going to involve like AI, facial recognition to detect if someone's 18 or not, or to confirm it with, along with their state ID, right? So like this is all coming. Like there's no, you're going to have to make a choice moving forward with these technologies that we rely on every day. If you're going to reject this, which is going to come at the cost of great inconvenience, like perhaps throwing your phone into the ocean, or make a compromise. So I see it as like, the World Economic Forum, they kind of have like alluded to this like digital pandemic that's coming, and that it's going to require a necessity of a, quote, digital vaccine. So not a literal vaccine, but they're proposing that they're going to offer some kind of digital solution that's going to restore your ability to basically, keep moving forward in society, keep using the conveniences that you have access to right now, with, just get this thing that they're going to offer. And I do think it's a digital ID.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I wanted to share this clip with you. I'm not sure if you've seen it before. But it kind of relates to a shift happening. It kind of sounds like what it is we're getting into a little bit. And at least what I think some of the Gnostic narrative is going to be with this beast system, with the elites and the control and the domination and the people that are behind it all. They're exposing it because I think that it'll push people towards a false light, if that makes any sense or whatever. But this guy, he's definitely got to be a mystic. But he shares a thought here, and I think it's kind of interesting. We'll play this out.
But I know there are people out there that get the message I'm sending out, and this is very simple. We are at the moment in a cycle of life where everybody, if you're just a little bit aware, you can feel something is shifting. Some people are not willing to maybe adapt to the change. Some people are not strong enough to adapt to the change. Some people don't know how to put it into practice in order to go with the change. It is my perspective. There will come the time, and it's not going to take long, where a natural separation is going to take place, a natural separation. The ones that are able to read the signs, that are able to go with what is happening, to adapt to the changes this world is bringing to us, they will move on to another world. They will move on to another area, to another cycle of us humans being right now here on the earth. And other people that are unwilling, unable, may be incapable of adapting to the coming changes. It is simple like this. They will stay with the old world, which is about to end.
Yeah, so it kind of made me think of what you're talking about. It's like you're going to have humanity want to go this way with technology, and then there's going to be people that, number one, because of probably medical issues or whatever it is, they just can't adapt to the change. But then there's going to be a group that just will be resistant to it in some sort of way.
Yeah, he's right in a sense that that is coming. He's wrong in his conclusion, where it's
right.
Yeah, the people adapting are going to they're going to they're going to bow before the Antichrist, essentially. But yeah, I mean that is pretty obvious. I mean, it's happening right now. I think even these technocrats are acknowledging that. They're talking about it the same way. So it's obviously that and I think that it's going to become increasingly difficult to go against it because of our reliance on technology at this point. How it's all, I described it as a boiling frog effect. It was basically since the onset of the internet, we've been for decades now being groomed into dependency on internet communications, on internet conveniences, even just down to our everyday life. Even if you're not on social media, dependency on GPS navigation to just get you from point A to point B. Like you're relying on literally a series of code of computer codes to get you to where you're going with complete trust on that. All kinds of trade-offs that we're making for our banking. Even it's like just to make transactions, you there's so many things where you actually need a phone to participate in. We're almost kind of at that point where it's in a sense like a precursor to like what Revelation describes as like a mark of not being able to buy or sell without it. There's try to just go a year without your phone and you can't even do banking. You can't even confirm a bank transaction without a phone number to verify anything. So it's increasingly difficult to live our lives without adopting these technologies to some extent. And I think that's going to become like, it's like this, we have like the enemy in our pocket essentially now. Like we're carrying around this like a hostile technology in our pocket and using it for almost everything. And we have this utter complete reliance on it, whether we trust it or not. We're reliant on it.
Yeah, there's like so much dependency on it in order to function and even to be a part of society with a cell phone. And you're absolutely right that it's like a precursor of the mark of the beast. And I find it interesting, right? With what he's talking about with this shift. I think this has a lot to do with, like the manufactured awakening, like you were talking about. And I think one thing to add to all of this is this narrative now coming out about the Sphinx, coming out about Atlantis, coming out about, about occultists that were able to tap into the Akashic records. And they were talking about this stuff for a long time. And now over there in Egypt, the Giza Plateau, there's a Sphinx, right? That they're saying they're picking up on SAR technology, which is like basically, they can see under the ground. And I'm wondering what it is that they will find down there. If they do find something, there's people that say, like the occultists that had made the predictions about this happening, they say that there's Atlantean knowledge down there, and that there is, even information about our origin, if that makes any sense. And what that could do to the technological world is it could advance it immediately. I mean, probably like this. And I know like in the UFO, UAP, and the non-human intelligent community and that whole narrative, that they're already talking about that there's technology that they have, that they've found, and that they've reverse engineered, but the narrative is saying that it's way back in the past. Somehow this technology was predating us, and so it kind of adds to that Atlantean narrative where was there a civilization here that did have I mean, we're technologically advanced and all of this. Wow, we got super chats coming in here hot. Another one from another dumb meme bro. Appreciate you. He says Glenn Beck also sponsors movies like Nefarious.
Glenn Beck. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. That makes it better. That's funny. Then we got another one here. Much love. Says not a mystic, but he's almost describing word for word Bill Cooper's breakdown of the Masonic 2001
Yeah.
Odyssey movie, from ape to man to transhumanist to God, the upgrade or ascension. I haven't watched the movie 2001.
Oh yeah, that's a deeply occulted movie. Like pretty much all of Kubrick's work is very occultic. Yeah, Space Odyssey especially. Yeah, he's right.
Do you think Stanley was a an occultist or a mystic, or
I don't know if he was a practicing, but he definitely had knowledge of the occult, like to a pretty deep level. I mean, Eyes Wide Shut is kind of the classic example of that. And there's theories that, like, I don't know how true these are. I haven't like done any like real research on it, but people believe that he was the one that filmed the moon landing, like the staged moon landing. It was Kubrick, because he had all this experience with you watch Space Odyssey and it's like it looks very similar to the NASA footage that we see. Like all these shots of the different angles of the planets and all that stuff. And there's theories that he was killed because of Eyes Wide Shut, because that was, I think, released either shortly before he died or after. I don't remember, but it was basically like, he was pulling back the curtain a little bit too much, because it's like kind of depicting like these things that you hear about the elites, like the orgies and the masks, wearing the masks, and these like kind of like skull and bones type gatherings or whatever. So I don't know if there's any validity to that, but yes, I think that he definitely had knowledge of the occult. That's undisputed. You could just watch Space Odyssey, and it's like the whole thing, like that famous scene where the apes are kind of like throwing up the bones in the air, and they're surrounding this big obelisk that looks almost like the Washington Monument, this big black obelisk. And so the whole thing like represents like, the next phase of human evolution.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the Eyes Wide Shut movie, because I did a huge kind of like, I watched it like 2 or 3 times, which was brutal, by the way, because it's a very slow film. Yeah. But I was trying to just go back through it, something I watched at a young age. I mean, I'm still kind of young. I'm 35, but 10, 15 years ago is when I watched it. So I'm watching it again, and something really popped out to me that kind of adds to what, what's his name? Master Shi Hengyi. I think what he's saying here is the people that won't want this change, they don't want to go into this shift, they're going to struggle with their ego. But the big thing about the occult is to suppress the ego in some sort of way. Even in Eyes Wide Shut, this is the symbology of wearing the masks and the cloaks and hiding your identity so you can learn how to suppress your ego, because you're doing immoral things, right? And I think that when people come to the crossroads, that's what they're going to face. They're going to face their conscious, the voice in the back of their head, their subconscious voice, and where they're going to be a little intimidated by either going with this shift or not going with it. But ultimately, you got to suppress the ego to go with this shift, which is an occult practice, in my opinion. So I think it's interesting, and with technology and AI, I kind of make this allegory with it to Queen Bee system. You know, it's like artificial intelligence seems, or it could be once it reaches progressive states after artificial general intelligence and becomes artificial super intelligence. I don't even really know how to describe the capabilities that it's going to have, but it'll be able to be like that intermediary for you for everything. So you mentioned something early in the show about people going to AI and going like on X, hey Grok,
Yeah.
you know, what is this?
Consulting the digital oracle.
Yes, dude. What did oracles do exactly back in the day?
Well, they were like, they were seers. They were like, they understood, or, speculatively understood what's in the spirit realm, and they were able to foresee things, or kind of like prophets, mystics, interpreters of reality type thing. And so, you look at Grok, I've mentioned this 1,000 times on my channel, but Grok is a good example of this, because they'll tell you, the creators of these LLMs will tell you how they perceive what they're building. And Grok is a perfect example of that, because Grok is a reference to Robert Heinlein's novel Stranger in a Strange Land. There's a concept called grokking. And so this ties into like Elon's obsession with Mars, because the book takes place on Mars, and in the Martian language, there's a term called grokking, where I think they use to describe it. I think commonly in the book, it's used to describe like how water is consumed. So what happens when you consume water, it becomes like part of your body, at least for the time being. Like it kind of like alters your body, right? And so it's a transhumanist notion, because it's saying that, like, if you go on like Grok's website, it'll even kind of use this language. It says like, how it's going to fundamentally like alter what we know about the world, and like it's like true understanding comes from Grok and this kind of stuff, which is again Gnostic. And so they like I said, they just tell you like this stuff is all science fiction. These people are obsessed with creating science fiction into reality. It's like an alchemical process for them to take these sci-fi concepts that were conceived by novelists, who happen to, by the way, have a huge role in the stuff we're talking about with space exploration. Particularly the big three sci-fi writers. You have Heinlein, Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, and Philip K. Dick. These guys were monumental in inspiring modern space travel. They all had affiliations with NASA and with the military, and and so they happen to also be the sci-fi writers who the technocrats are obsessed with. They're almost like they're saints.
Yeah, you're right, man. I forget who wrote a book about all of that. Basically, like how NASA developed, and like you're saying, the science fiction and the, space mysteries and all of that kind of stuff, right? I also feel like a big part of NASA, and you pointed this out to me, I didn't really know how brutal this was, but the people working at NASA are some of them are probably into the mystery schools. Some of them are probably into secret societies. But ultimately, there's a spirit that is behind NASA, where it's kind of like this duality spirit. You blew me away, dude, when someone said in your chat, or I can't remember if you said it, but they were like, NASA's gay, and you were like, yeah, and then you played a video from NASA.
Literally, yeah.
The higher ups, I guess, with NASA, do you think that they're into secret societies or mystery schools and all this?
Well, yeah, I mean, the depends what you mean by higher up. Like, I wouldn't be able to give you actual examples, but I'm sure that to some degree that some of them are, and it probably would be very difficult to make a case that all of them are. But the first thing I look at is the astronauts, because we know from the Apollo 11 mission, and especially most of the early Apollo missions, where there was an overwhelming representation of Freemasons. So not all of them were Freemasons, but Buzz Aldrin, Glenn, what was his name? Glenn I have Glenn Beck in my head. But is Glenn something? There's a handful of Apollo 11 astronauts. Buzz Aldrin being the big one. He was a 33rd degree Mason. They were high-ranking Masons. They brought a Masonic flag with them to the moon mission, which people, I think, don't know about for some reason. There's also, you can go on the Scottish Rite Freemasonry website. There's an article about how Buzz Aldrin consecrated the first Masonic temple on the moon. Okay, so there's all this stuff this is why it's hilarious to me when these people are like, oh, the moon mission at NASA is like a Christian effort or something, or like space exploration is like this Christian thing. Well, these people were Freemasons, though. Like they were mostly Freemasons. Like at least the most quote historic or heroic astronauts, they were Masonic. And so, I think that. And so that's what I look at. And so I was looking at the 4 astronauts on this Artemis mission. The only one I could find something on was the I forget his name, the black one, who was in a fraternity that was founded by Freemasons. Like when he was in university, he was in some kind of Chi Sigma Kappa, something like that, fraternity that was founded by Freemasons. Is that evidence that he himself was a Freemason? I don't know. We don't know. I've said this before, that like in the modern time, it's even more difficult to identify people as Freemasons because it's so stigmatized. It's not like how it was in the 60s where they were more open about it. And so it's going to be very difficult to find anything like that. But you can kind of look at, I mean, that's why we're kind of left to the symbology. Like you just look at what kind of symbols are they flashing. Somebody showed, there was like a video of, that clip of the astronauts, like when they were suiting them up, when they were kind of like strapping them into the chairs and stuff. One of the guys had a tattoo on his hand of Baphomet. And it was like clear and kind of like that famous photo. Like you can see the guy that was like strapping down one of the astronauts. He had like a tattoo of Baal or Baphomet or something like that on his hand.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're getting them all prepped and stuff. They can't really tie in some of these harnesses themselves. And like you said, yeah, he's reaching over and he's got the Baphomet. He's got the old Baphomet tattoo on his hand. Yeah. Here's our boy Buzz, kind of flashing out a little symbol.
Yeah, he doesn't hide it. I mean, you can see photos of him doing the hidden hand on the moon mission, like on the Apollo 11 mission. There's a famous photo of him doing the hidden hand in his sleeve pocket. And, he brought he was wearing his Masonic ring. It's like, it was, again, it was no secret to them back then. It wasn't considered like this kind of esoteric thing, I guess. But nowadays it's, they're not going to do it. They're not going to be as obvious about it because people get sketched out about it. So I think it's harder to identify. And I also don't think that Freemasonry has as much of an influence on the world as it once did. I almost think, in a sense, Freemasonry as an institution, it met its goals probably 100, 200 years ago. It kind of like set out to do a particular thing that it accomplished, and now, yeah, there it is. Yep. Yeah, so it's like that, and that's also the guy he's strapping in, is who I was just talking about, who had was affiliated with or belonged to that guy. I forget his name, but he was in a Masonic fraternity, let's say. So it's interesting that it was him.
Yeah, you made a good point too on your stream on kind of how they laid out these harnesses. I get the V-point harness and all that.
That's the V. Yeah, the Masonic whatever they call it, the shroud or something that they wear over the V shape, the blue, and it's blue too. It's like, it happens to be blue, like the high-ranking Masons wear that blue shroud or whatever that goes over them.
Yeah, there's something about the color blue. I know that the frequency of the color, how it reacts to light, it kind of falls under, I think it's like 675 and like 630 something. But in between that is 666. I get it. You know, I should put that tinfoil hat on right behind me, getting into this. But, you know, I think there's something to that, right? This guy wearing or having the tattoo on his hand with all of this, and also the Freemasonic symbolism too is wild, man. And that's
Yeah.
what makes me think like this is all ritualistic. This is in some sort of way them honoring what they believe in,
Yeah.
or trying to build up some sort of you know, again, like I'm not new age, but to them I think that they are trying to build up a vibration. They're trying to build up an alignment as well with the global conscious, you know, aspect of all
Well,
this.
it's you can see it in that pose, that Baphomet pose. So it's like resembling as above, so below, right? That's why the other hand is pointing down. And this is resembling theurgy, right? It's like that man is the magician in the middle of the divine and the earthly realm, and he's able to enact change in both realms. So the mirror, it's like they perceive reality as like a mirror of the divine, and so what they do on Earth also reflects, like it could actually enact real change in what they think is the divine realm. So, and it's ultimately like a kind of an inversion of what's really going on, because, you know, we acknowledge that there is an aspect of heaven coming down to earth, not in a Gnostic sense, but in the way that God engages with humanity, right? Like that's what the incarnation was. It was God coming down from heaven and actually entering matter, right? So like we acknowledge that there is an engagement with the invisible divine realm with the material. And so what they're doing is inverting it. What the occultists do is invert it and say that man is actually in the center of it and able to, as a magician, enact change like in the mirrors of reality.
Yeah, shout out another super chat. I forget what part of the conversation this was going to, but they say another dumb meme bro is hot today. It says Hubbard too, right?
Yeah.
Hubbard.
Yeah, and Jack Parsons. Yeah, Hubbard was living with Jack Parsons. He was like kind of his like almost like his counterpart in his thelemic rituals. He was like there's a whole story about how Jack Parsons, he lost his it was a woman, I guess, who was like, it was really important. They had almost like this divine feminine like figure who like was necessary for their rituals. And I forget what happened, if she died or they had a falling out or something, but he was like
Marjorie Cameron.
I think so. Yeah. And he was like kind of on the hunt for that person to fill that role. And L. Ron Hubbard came along, and like he became very very powerful in the thelemic rituals that they were doing. So yeah, the founder of Scientology, yeah, Jack Parsons, for those who don't know, had a major role in it. He was the founder of the jet propulsion technology that NASA is kind of founded on. So he was, not even like low key an occultist. I mean, you can see pictures of him in his like thelemic garb. He was writing all these letters to Crowley and stuff. He was a very close correspondent to Aleister Crowley. So he was kind of like his top guy in America.
Yeah, another dumb meme bro came in hot with another super chat. Much love. I seriously got
there you go.
A lot of love for you here. Says that Jack Parsons and Hubbard literally did satanic sex rituals, which I think is like Order of the Golden Dawn or something. I get it mixed up. Hermetic Golden Dawn or something like this.
Yeah, it's all kind of the same syncretic. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it says, plus paperclip from World War II laundered the Nazis into our political, college, and military rockets mental systems. Oh yeah, pretty much a lot of the infrastructure, right? And says NASA explores the space in your head. Whoa. That makes sense, right? With like Epstein, why he's got dark brain on his chalkboard, axiom of Maria, time delay, all of this stuff. I think he was also trying to try and map out the brain, but the hidden part of the brain, the occult part of the brain, the dark matter and the dark energy of the brain are things that you can't measure, you can't calculate, you can't scientifically prove that it exists, but you know it exists from functions and all of that. And I think he was into quantum dot technology to try and well, I don't think I know it was in the files and stuff like this. I've done some episodes where I talk about quantum dot technology and really how it could serve as a sensor for the body to pick up vital signs and all kinds of stuff. It can maybe also connect to the patent 060606 that Microsoft came out in 2017 but didn't establish until 2020. Boom, right when everyone was kind of occupied with a cultural change, right, in society. And you know, when we look at Parsons, he is the foundation. You can argue for this, that he's the foundation for NASA.
Yeah, NASA wouldn't be it wouldn't be possible what we just saw, launching these rockets into space without Jack Parsons.
Now, with the Babylon working ritual and all of this, you know, the moon. What do you think their goal was?
Well, I mean, it's almost like in a very literal sense, it's what they're doing. Because what was the Tower of Babel? It was man trying to use technology. I mean, it was ultimately a technological a goal, right? Because they had to use technology to build the tower itself, and their goal was to ascend into heavens, like quite literally in a material way, to build a structure so big that they were able to ascend into the heavens, so much so that God had to intervene and actually destroy the tower, right? And then there was, of course, the aspect of all the languages as one coming together as one, which we're also seeing happen with AI. AI is becoming like kind of the global hive mind of communications, of language, right? And so I think that the two are almost inseparable in a sense, even though it doesn't seem that way, but space travel and AI. And so, yeah, when we're watching these rocket launches, I mean, it's quite literally like just the only difference is in the advancement of technology. But I mean, it's really kind of the same effort. It's like, well, instead of building this big tower, now we have the technology for jet propulsions to actually just launch something that it actually just breaks the firmament and it transcends into the heavens or whatever it is they're trying to do. And then, you know, ultimately it's like man trying to ascend or break through the limitations of creation and prove that they have divine command over their destiny. You know, it's even talked about like that. Trump even talked about like that. If you watch the video of him explaining the Artemis mission, he's using this very Gnostic language. Obviously, he didn't write that script that he's reading, but whoever did from the White House, it's like using this very Gnostic language about why it is that they're even doing this.
Dude, I wonder if, again, I'm not like super well researched on all of the missions or anything that NASA, you know, has been involved in, but is there anything that is named Atlas or anything like that? I'm curious of that. And real quick, shout out to my brothers, Jeremy and John. Their podcast is By Their Fruits, and that's their channel right there. But he says, my brother and I infiltrated a Masonic lodge years ago, and I preached the gospel to the worshipful master. It was insane. Cool story. Oh man, that's kind of insane. You know what's funny too is not too far from the area I'm in, but it's you know, at least in Florida, it was where Freemasonry originated and built its first temple and all this kind of stuff. I've always been curious to like go inside and to pick apart all the symbolism and all of that. You know, you mentioned too about you know, going to the heavens and all this. It's almost like these NASA missions could probably pose as an apotheosis ritual of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the end goal of all of the occult traditions. It's just apotheosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Trying to go to the with the gods, right? Trying to
it's self-divinization. Yeah, it's like self-divinization. It's like becoming divine by your own efforts, like by, not through a synergistic union with God, but through your own, your own will, or through, in this case, gnosis, and through the, attaining this certain degree of knowledge, technological expertise that allows you to transcend, figuratively transcend like the limitations of reality.
Yeah, we got another one in here, another super chat from another dumb meme bro. People gonna know your name by the end of this stream. It was his MK Ultra programmed wife, his muse. He took his
that's
wife.
right. Yeah, he's talking.
And,
Jack Parsons. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the moon child, right? Like that kind of makes me think of the mythologies that I dig into with you've got the goddess and her child. Some of these are like in the Phrygian times was known as Kybele, Cybele, or there's many different ways you could say the name and pronounce it. But her consort slash son is Attis. And I can't help but make some connections with Attis to Donald Trump. Donald Trump kind of seems to have some sort of loose connection to Apollo or this figure Attis, or like another one in the Egyptians known as either like Osiris or Horus, right? It's kind of like he's paying homage to what it is he believes in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do you think with our with our government, with the war and everything going on? Have you thought of any outcomes of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I look at things historically. I'm old enough to remember the aftermath of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq in the wake of 9/11, and what occurred during that time and became more obvious after, which was kind of like the beginning of the surveillance state. It was they rolled out the Patriot Act, right? It all justified the invasion of American citizens' privacy through the Patriot Act. And it's like now, it's not good to spy on citizens, but we have this threat of foreign terror attacks, right? And it's like, what can we do about that? Well, we have to kind of like start taking surveillance more seriously. This is what justified the TSA. You literally can't travel through an airport now without getting fully groped, molested, and by a complete stranger, and the whole thing is unconstitutional, right? So the whole institution is technically illegal, and this is what justified all this. So that's what I look at. I look at how it's going to impact living in America going forward. There's also there's multiple aspects to this. Obviously, like it's not just like one thing. But I'm particularly interested with like the societal impact and how let's say that this whole moon mission was an occult ritual. Well, there's always a purpose to these rituals. Okay. So like I mentioned 9/11 earlier, the occultists behind these rituals on a mass scale, like on the world stage, they think of them as like almost like gateway rituals. Like they're ushering in this new age of humanity, right? Like that's kind of symbolically what they represent. And so, this is our first major NASA mission in the age of AI. And so when they come back, it's like I'm looking at like I don't know exactly what's going to unfold. I'm just like that's the kind of stuff that's what I'm paying attention to, and that's why I'm paying extra close attention to the emerging surveillance state, because I think that's, again, while we're all looking up in space quite literally, I think the rug's being pulled from under us, and it's going to justify a lot of whatever this is leading to. I think it's going to justify a lot of this stuff. I mean, I just sent you, kind of related here, I sent you before we went live a clip of something that just released today with Claude, with Anthropic, who's developing Claude. We can just, I guess it's 4 minutes, but it's all these developers for Anthropic explaining how they literally developed an AI that's so powerful that it can crack any operating system, even all the Linux like the most secure Linux operating system, which is FreeBSD. It found all these exploits in the kernel, and they've acknowledged that it's so dangerous that they won't even release it. So like we already have this technology that we basically can't do anything about this. We can think that we're being more secure and installing the most secure operating system, and there's still an AI that's invisible that can actually just crack it.
Dude, this is crazy because last stream I think I played who's the guy who created OpenAI? Sam Altman.
Sam Altman,
yeah. There was a clip of him coming out when he was on a show where he's talking about the power of artificial intelligence and how people can use it and use it for bad things. But he laid out an example of a guy who basically used artificial intelligence to heal his dog. And to come up with a vaccine algorithm or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you do that with artificial intelligence, but he's using it to help his dog. And so what possibilities this can open up for mankind could be used for good or could be used for bad. And so he's kind of like gatekeeping these abilities now because of what this guy did, because who knows if someone could even get into artificial intelligence developing some sort of microorganism that can take out a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I'm not in the business of speculating how, like, what the deceptions of the Antichrist are going to be. I think that in itself can be a deception, but you can almost see how, how like in the scriptures, it talks about how the Antichrist will deceive the whole world, essentially, even the elect, right? And so how with false miracles specifically, right? So I think about this a lot, how in this materialistic Western world we live in, is the entire population going to be deceived by false miracles when they're materialists? Well, I think, technology certainly presents a possibility there, because you look at like Elon Musk, who is, developing this, or has built rather, this Neuralink, right? Which look at how they were presenting it. The first adopter of Neuralink ever was able to, they call it digital telepathy. He was able to move these chess pieces on a board, and he was a paraplegic or something, right? With his mind. Like it's like, really, that's not what's going on. They're just using all this language to describe it. But, and then his next project is called Blindsight. So he's developing an AI or some kind of neural technology that's going to help the blind to see, right? So I look at stuff like that, and it's like, that makes sense. Like, that's going to deceive many people just by manipulating the language of what's really going on to use this kind of miraculous, like inexplainable language to ascribe it to technology, which is really an entirely materialistic thing that's happening. You can actually describe how this is happening on a material level. So yeah, I think that that's probably going to play some role. I don't know. Again, I don't try to make these predictions, but seems to me that's the possibility for sure.
Yeah. Did you think it's worth playing the video for the audience?
I mean, it's like 4 minutes. Yeah, I mean, you could play it just so people have an idea of what's happening right now. I mean, this was just today. I think it's probably important. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll play it. If you got to take a little quick break or something, go ahead, and we'll let this run for the audience. And shout out to everybody in the chat. Let's go, baby.
There's a kind of accelerating exponential, but along that exponential, there are points of significance. Claude Mythos Preview is a particularly big jump along that point. We haven't trained it specifically to be good at cyber. We trained it to be good at code, but as a side effect of being good at code, it's also good at cyber.
The model that we're experimenting with is, by and large, as good as a professional human at identifying bugs. It's good for us because we can find more vulnerabilities sooner and we can fix them.
It has the ability to chain together vulnerabilities. So what this means is you find 2 vulnerabilities, either of which doesn't really get you very much independently. But this model is able to create exploits out of 3, 4, sometimes 5 vulnerabilities that in sequence give you some kind of very sophisticated end outcome.
And we think that this model can do this really well because we notice that this model is very autonomous.
It's just generally better at pursuing really long-range tasks that are kind of like the tasks that a human security researcher would do throughout the course of an entire day. Obviously, capabilities in a model like this could do harm if in the wrong hands. And so we won't be releasing this model widely. More powerful models are going to come from us and from others.
So the way they're describing it as it's like they developed this technology, but also they are good because they're acknowledging the dangers and they're not releasing it to the public. So it's like they're actually playing into this dialectical role of like, we created this thing, but we're also good because we're acknowledging the dangers of it and we're protecting the public from these dangers. So it's like we have to literally, these nerds are ruling over it. Like these are a bunch of nerds that are new rulers, that it's like humanity's like in their hands, right? Or the fate of humanity is like, perceived as being in the hands of these tech nerds that nobody voted in. It's like there was no democratic process or anything to these people ruling over us. And, they're the ones that are like protecting us from this total AI, takeover of our actual, the machines that we use to access the internet.
And so we do need a plan to respond to this. That's why we're launching what we're.
You're absolutely right, by the way. You're absolutely right. And I have something to kind of add to this. I know I've talked about Atlantis, but I'll get into it after all this.
Calling Project Glasswing, where we partner with a number of the organizations that power some of the world's most critical code to put the model into their hands, to allow them to look at how they can use models like this to bring down risk and protect everyone.
And by giving these software developers advanced tools before anyone else, it gives all of us a collective head start.
It allows us to find things that we couldn't find before, and it helps us fix these things much more quickly.
Working with our partners, we've been finding vulnerabilities across essentially every major platform.
I found more bugs in the last couple of weeks than I found in the rest of my life combined. We've used the model to scan a bunch of open source code. And the thing that we went for first was operating systems, because this is the code that underlies the entire internet infrastructure. For OpenBSD, we found a bug that's been present for 27 years, where I can send a couple of pieces of data to any OpenBSD server and crash it. On Linux, we found a number of vulnerabilities where, as a user with no permissions, I can elevate myself to the administrator by just running some binary on my machine. For each of these bugs, we told the maintainers who actually run the software about them, and they went and fixed them and have deployed the patches so that anyone who runs this software is no longer vulnerable to these attacks.
For a developer who tirelessly maintains software, a model that can help them discover vulnerabilities in their own code and fix them before they can be exploited, that is an invaluable tool.
We've spoken to officials across the US government, and we've offered to work with them and collaborate to assess the risks of these models and to help defend against the risks of these models. Everything that we do in our lives now depends on software.
Software kind of ate the world. Every analog aspect of our life is somehow represented in digital domain.
And so all of our daily lives run on the idea that we can rely on the systems that power them.
Cybersecurity is the security of our society.
It is essential that we come together and work together across industry to help build better defensive capabilities.
No single organization sees the whole picture and can tackle this on their own.
This is not going to be done as part of a few-week program. This is going to be the work of certainly months, perhaps years. But what I do hope is at the end of this, we can be in a position where the world's software, its customer data, its financial transactions, its critical infrastructure are safer than they were before.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
We are in trouble. You're right. So it's fascinating, and why I think this whole thing with what you're talking about, manufacturing and awakening and all of this, it's to create two groups in society. where we're at today with technology, we're pretty advanced. We're so advanced. I mean, 200 years ago is kind of like, it's hard to grasp that we really came from, almost like, I don't even know, the caveman type technology. And then now where we're at today, we're flying stealth bombers halfway around the world. And it made me think of Casey talking about Atlantis, and Steiner's talked about it, Blavatsky's talked about it, and really the Gnostics talk about the same kind of thing, where there's like this demiurge group, or this group that is using their elite authority to rule for domination, and they're using the technology to do this. It's the difference between that group and the other group is that the other group was like kind of like, I don't know how a good way to say it, but like the hippie group. And if there's any hippies in there, I got nothing against you. But it's like the hippie style, where they're like, hey, let's use the technology for good, and to ascend spiritually in all of this. And getting into Casey's work, I'll pull up this here. And this was brought to my attention by a dark journalist, because I think he's kind of pushing for the group that is called the Sons of the Law of One, with this Sphinx stuff and the pyramid stuff, and that when we as humanity get this knowledge once again, there will be a group that will want to use this for good. So involuntarily, it kind of points to the elites today as being the ones that fall under what's known as the Sons of Belial. Let me see if I can pull this up. Where are we at? Okay. So the children of the law of one, this is something out of one of his excerpts or his trances that he went into, getting this information, to which he calls like the Akashic record. And it's basically the sons of the law of one. He says their precepts were that the soul has been given by the creator or entered from an external source in the projection of my mental and spiritual times. These were the precepts of the law of one, rejected by the sons of Belial. And then the sons of Belial are the sons of Belial were a group, or were of one group, or those that sought more of a gratifying and satisfying and the use of material things for themselves, without the thought of consideration as to the sources of such, nor the hardships in their experiences of others, or in other words, as we would term it today, they were those without a standard morality. And so you can kind of see like this group here seems to be like more of like the Gnostic side of using the technology, and then this group here is like the materialistic side, the demiurge side, where they want to use the technology to kind of rule and imprison humanity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's almost like these AI companies are playing both roles. Again, it's like dialectical. It's like they've built the technology to like transcend the moral law, but then they're also the ones, because they're working with the government, they have a say on, like, they're all, it's no coincidence that they're all involved in like AI regulation, right? Which involves like the ethics of AI. So it's like they're the ones both safeguarding and building the technology and safeguarding it from us. So yeah, there's probably, I haven't looked too much into that in particular, but there's probably aspects of that. I happen to think it has more to do with almost like a new Rosicrucianism, which was mentioned actually in the Epstein files. I forget which technocrat he was corresponding with in the emails, but they mentioned it was one of these transhumanist types that said something like, we need to build a new Rosicrucianism. And, I think that like that is, it's similar to like the Atlanteans, what you were just showing, like they have this, for those who don't know, the Rosicrucians were like kind of the birth child of New Atlantis. Actually, that does tie in. It's Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, which he conceived of this secret society that was ruled by, Protestant Christians who where like if you read the book, it's all technological advancement. Like he kind of conceived of like underwater, like almost like a precursor to submarines and like flying machines and things like this. So this like superior kind of elite technocratic society that's ruled by a secret society, which he called the Solomon's House. And this was a precursor to like basically the Rosicrucians materialized that. And the Rosicrucians were entirely Gnostic. It was like this whole effort to like, back then there was the notion that you could actually attain all the knowledge in the world. And so you could actually reach that level of gnosis of like, I know everything now. And so like part of like what the Hartlib Circle was doing was trying to gather all of the intel in the world. It was actually Samuel Hartlib was kind of like at the time, what would be considered like the most notorious kind of intelligence officer or agent or whatever. And so he had all these connections and whatnot. And so, yeah, it was a secret society that was basically founded on like Rosicrucian principles of, kind of like a precursor of singularity, right? It's like we're like actually ascending humanity and bringing it to the next phase of human evolution by pure gnosis, by discovering and unlocking all of the mysteries of the universe. So, yeah, I mean, this was back in the early 18th century, 17th century, early 17th century. So, yeah, I think that's probably what's going on. And that's why I saw someone in the chat was like kind of pushing back against the notion that the Freemasons' goal hasn't really been achieved. And like, there's still this like really dominant influence of Freemasonry. I want to preface what I was saying about that. I think that ties into what we're talking about here, because I was mentioning the World Trade Center, for example, like 9/11, and how symbolically what we saw was like the two towers, like the two Masonic pillars collapsing, right? So it was like kind of like the destruction of the Enlightenment age and like the ushering in. It was like a gateway ritual, it was ushering in this new technocratic age. And so in many ways, I think that yes, you still see the symbolic reference to Freemasonry. There's still the handshakes and the symbology that we see all the time. I see that as like a nod to like that there's something esoteric going on. Like that's just kind of like the elites nodding to each other to like symbolically show that they're in the know of what's happening. In terms of like the Masonic influence, the whole point of Freemasonry was to rebuild the temple, to rebuild the Temple of Solomon. Speculative Freemasonry was like they kind of described it as like allegorical in that regard. And then you have the operative Freemasonry, which was like, oh, it's based on the ancient Builders Guild that actually built the Temple of Solomon. And so what we see now is like actually they've allegorically successfully built that new infrastructure of humanity that we're now in. Like we're in that phase now. It's like they've kind of reached their goal in that regard, at least symbolically or metaphysically or whatever, in spreading Enlightenment principles throughout the West.
I see what you're saying. We got a super chat here from another dumb meme bro. It says, Law of One is LL research and absolute spook trash using V2K. It is a psyop that I sadly fell into for many years. It is a CIA op pushing the Galactic Federation versus Orion. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, because I'm glad to see that we can transition into maybe this topic here with the alien agenda with all of this, because I kind of see it being played out to where this is kind of just how this could be just, a 1,000,000-mile view from all of this, where we get bad aliens versus good aliens. It's kind of like ascending masters versus the Greys, the Nordics, not Nordics, but the Greys, the Mantis, the Draconians, and whatever. So I can maybe see something like that being played into the equation. What are your thoughts with the alien agenda and all of that?
Yeah, it ties in directly to what our topic here is. We're in the beginning talking about the mainstreaming of conspiracies, and now, you have even just, I think it was last week, you had J.D. Vance talking to, what was his name? Benny Johnson. It was another one of these guys. I think he's if I'm not mistaken, a Daily Wire guy, or, one of these Con Inc. guys that was soy facing over the rocket launch. And he had him on his show, and JD Vance literally said that he believes aliens are demons, which is true. They are. But that kind of is my point. In like, you have even a US vice president now mainstreaming this idea. And, you have the government now. It's not a secret anymore. Like, they're acknowledging that there is this alien conspiracy that's been hidden by the federal government, and they're like kind of playing the role of like, oh, you should thank us for like releasing this to the public. Like, we're finally acknowledging that this is a reality. And I think that the deception around UFOs and aliens are something that we could fall into, even trying to decipher what's going on. Like, for us to even try to speculate as to what role that's going to play, I think is just such a powerful deception. What's actually going to happen, that it could be dangerous to even try to expose ourselves to it, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. We have in the Orthodox tradition, we have a modern saint who is a prophet, Saint Gabriel of Georgia, who had this kind of famous prophetic warning that in the last days there would be a great deception of aliens and cyborgs. I mean, this was back in the early 20th century that he foresaw this stuff, and he said, to not even look to the sky. Like, because you could be deceived even by looking to the sky to try to decipher what's going on. So it's almost like best thing you could do is ignore it. Just, know that there is a great deception involved in the UFO alien phenomenon, and leave it at that, and just like ignore it altogether, because the deception could come in the form of trying to think what's going on and trying to decipher it.
Yeah, it's kind of like my buddy Raven with NDS, Nephilim Death Squad. He kind of says something very funny, and those guys are hilarious. They're very entertaining. But he says the best thing really at the end of the whole alien psyop agenda narrative, whatever, he's like, just grandma max it. Yeah, he calls it grandma maxing, where grandma's got her little Bible on her nightstand, and she don't know about all this stuff, or even the occult and all that. I say all the time, like, if you think this stuff is happening, like if you think like we're really headed towards the eschaton, like you should just be praying and drawing closer to God, as if that's the case anyway. Like, what can you actually do to change any of this if that's the direction things are going? And we'll start preparing your soul. Amen. Yeah, exactly. And so another dumb meme bro, another super chat. Appreciate you much love. Says, what they do is have a group of researchers that influence the hippie researchers via voice to skull tech. They then tell the psyopt influencers that they are aliens, raw spirits from fifth dimension, but it's spook doing psyops. It's spook doing psyops. I get it.
Yeah.
And the voice to skull technology, again, I think we have Atlantean technology. It's just obviously controlled right now, or under a state of control. And humanity, through this awakening, I think, is going to want to liberate and free themselves from this, this demiurge archetype, right? That's kind of over humanity, which then will advocate humanity will advocate for freedom and to try and a revolution, if that makes sense. Another super chat here says, yes, that's exactly what it is. Just fake alien gibberish meant to divide and get people to unironically accept demons.
Yeah. I mean, we're like, again, the digital oracle concept. It's like we're consulting this essentially occult technology for answers about, spirituality, reality itself, religion, all this stuff, philosophy, right? And I can see that transitioning into the same thing for aliens, like, describe to us like why you're here, like communicating with them. It's like you're just literally communicating with demons, like by even inquiring to them about anything. So like that's kind of like the obvious deception, is like people are going to communicate with them. I think that we need to go further and say, like, if they're demons, like how do you deal with demons? You ignore them, right? If aliens are demons, like why, like what are we doing trying to like figure out their behaviors and like, not that there's like value to that to like understand how the deceptions occur, but I think we need to be very careful about that, because it's like you're dealing with the demonic quite literally. And so there's no stronger deception, I don't think, for us to think that we can understand that can be a deception in itself.
Yeah. And this is something I've said too on the show. AI is ancient intelligence. And it's kind of like, definitely. Right. I've always really kind of wondered how the pyramids got built. How does the Mayan culture completely parallel with the Egyptian culture, or even just places out there in the Mesopotamian area in their culture? And it seems like it could have been most likely from the Tower of Babel, where this kind of got destroyed. The people got confused. Their language became broken up, right, and divided, and so then they continued on the search for bringing back this knowledge that would bring the world back together for this Tower of Babel unity moment and all of this. For the idea of Tower of Babel, have you tried to make any conclusions to what the tower itself was used for?
In the biblical sense?
Yeah, biblical sense, and I'm sure we only get a very small window of it in scripture, so most of it really kind of becomes speculation. But yeah,
I mean, like I said, it was a technological effort. It wouldn't have been done with it's ties into kind of what you're talking about with the pyramids and stuff. It's like they could not build that tower without the use of technology, and that's not to say like the use of technology in itself is demonic or something, but it kind of lays tribute to that, like what we're talking about, how there's like this both nefarious, like this dualistic kind of use of it, like a nefarious and use, and then there's also like a possibility, although very rare, I think, use of it for the good. So I think that that's probably a good way to understand it in the modern sense, is that it was ultimately a technological effort to build something through human effort to will the transcending of humanity to the heavens, right? So again, very similar to like launching rockets into space, like just the more advanced version of that. Yeah.
Have you heard of the because this is something, obviously we've seen Timothy Alberino going on a lot of shows, a lot of big shows. He talks about Mars and like this ancient civilization that was on Mars and all this kind of stuff and yada yada yada. He has his perspectives of everything, which it's his perspectives. I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but there's a book that he references a lot called Sidonia, which is basically have you ever heard of that book? No, so it's kind of like wrapped around basically that there was an angelic civilization on Mars, and this gets into like where in the Babylonian creation epic you have this war that kind of takes place, this primordial chaos or whatever. It gets into like the asteroid belt, that this was most likely a planet, but it got destroyed, and yada yada yada, all that kind of stuff. I think that's part of the alien deception, where if we do find something under the Sphinx or in the Hall of Records that's under the Giza Plateau, or even when they go ahead and they excavate this second Sphinx that they say that they've found up on the northwest side of the plateau, if they get in there and they find something that enlightens humanity of the origin of our origins and all of this, I think that that is a deception as well. I mean, because when you look at Egypt, like it's all of those mythologies, it's like a counterfeit to God's word, and I think that that's what Satan does, is he's like the guy that kind of copies the work of the person sitting next to him, right? And he kind of looks into the God's word, and he's like, those are great ideas, I'm going to come up with my own. And so do you think that it could play in as a part of this alien narrative that either falls into like an astronaut theory kind of type thing, or a panspermia type idea where they were in some way our creators?
Well, there's and we were talking about the big three sci-fi writers, right? I think it was Philip K. Dick, who I would suggest you look into him, because he was very occult. Like he was actually hanging out in Crowley's Thelema mansion, and he wrote this book. I think it was Childhood's End, and that's exactly what it's about. It's about literally Satan, who comes down to earth and tells everyone that he actually was it's like Satan in the form of an AI specifically, who tells everyone that, he was actually the creator of everything. Like he created this AI. It's almost like a precursor to like the idea of, simulation theory, it's like, actually this is all a simulation created by Satan. It's like very actually Valentinian Gnostic, in a sense that it's like all of material reality is evil,
Right. I gotta say this in the chat. It says move, counter move, a cosmic chess match God already won, and that's from Ultra Heatseeker. Shout out, man. And that's the Hegelian dialectic too, played into all of that between. This is part of Satan's arithmetic and all of this. That's how he goes about fulfilling his goals or whatever it is, and it's a move, counter move.
He can't create anything. Satan can't create anything. He's just manipulating what's already created, and that's kind of what the magicians are doing. It's like they're just manipulating reality, or they think they are.
Right. Now, do you think Trump is a magician?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it so wild how he facades himself? That blows my mind. Obviously there's things you can point out if you know the language, if you've studied the occult, not that you're into the occult, but that you've studied it, you can see little things. You could see the fruit of people a little bit better, and it's all over him, right?
It's chaos magic. That's kind of
so what is that? What is chaos magic?
Well, it's like creating it's similar to like what, I try to describe it in the more modern sense, because I think that we experience it with like what we're talking about with the algorithms and whatnot. It's like a obscuring of reality. It's like in the neo-pagan kind of esoteric sense, it's drawing these similarities between like it's Discordianism essentially. It's just like conditioning people into belief as this idiosyncratic tool, which blends all of these scientific theories, quantum physics, and practical magic. It kind of like blends them together, right? So it's like a ritualistic effort to obscure what's actually happening in reality. And I think that that's like essentially what we're seeing with the algorithms, how, like I was saying, you can't even really discern what's happening in a conspiratorial sense anymore, because you have all of these people who might be like describing something that there's an inkling of truth to it, but it's all obscured by deception, by false kind of presuppositions. and it's all like that all kind of is just being thrown together and randomly disseminated. So our understanding of the nature of what's truly happening is totally obscured. So I think that that's what the technocrats, the elites right now are leveraging in a very obvious way, and especially with like AI accelerating all of that. It's like, you know, the notion that we can't even know what's real and fake anymore, even by looking at videos of what seems to be reality. Like that's chaos magic. You know, it's like I think that's their way of not like circumventing, just flat out censoring these discussions. It's like they can just actually use chaos magic to obscure. It's in a sense even more effective than censorship, because censorship shows you that there's probably something true there that they don't want you to know. But now it's like it doesn't even matter, because they can obscure the truth so effectively that we can't even figure it out as truth seekers, you know?
Right. Shout out again. Another dumb meme bro says, the biblical hitman, I didn't see a Discord. You should join Westgate's Discord, or search for Robert Duncan, The Matrix Deciphered. It is an ex-NASA, DARPA, Harvard Tech, who helped build the V2K and AI systems, started in the 50s with Jose Delgado. And V2K that's the first rocket, right? Was that the first rocket that was,
I think so, yeah,
made? Yeah. Now Werner von Braun, right? And we'll get, you know, we're coming into a landing with the stream and all this. You know, Werner von Braun says that, well, he said to Carol Rosin, I think her name is, who was an associate of his, and basically on his deathbed, he's like, hey, the last card is that there's going to be an extraterrestrial threat, and that the world is going to develop technology to fight against this extraterrestrial threat. Yet this is part of developing, you know, the new world order, and to bring the world together into one. And when you have Trump, you know, he developed Space Force, and there's a lot of symbolism behind Space Force and all of this. I mean, you broke it down really well this episode, where what is the nature of these people that are involved in NASA and all of these kind of space agencies, right? It gets into that sci-fi theme, where when you look at the movies, look what the movies are all pushing. That's sci-fi. So I can only think that maybe this is something that could play into it. But then again, I kind of like how you're saying, you know, with chaos magic and all of this, it makes me think of Yuri Bezmenov, the ex-KGB agent for Russia, where he came over here for an interview. He moved, you know, he was moved to the United States, left Russia, but he was like this psyop engineer. If anything, Russia was really good at developing psyops, and he called it active measures, that this was a multi-stage process, and that you have demoralization is the first thing, then you have destabilization. And I think both of those things can be fulfilled under the chaos magic category. And then after that, you've got normalization. You know, what are your thoughts with that process, and at least where we're at, you know, where would you put us in that 3-stage event?
It seems like we're experiencing all three at once, doesn't it?
Yeah, dude. I'm glad you said
like
that.
I hate to I hate to segment that into like phases of history, because I think that it's all happening at once. And that's part of the dialectical kind of trick, where it's like creating the tension of opposites, and then the antithesis, right? Or the synthesis comes through that tension as the merging of opposites. And so I think that, like, even to conceive of world history in this like dispensational kind of separation of these phases, to some extent, like in that, I guess in that regard, is dangerous, because you'll spend all this time trying to figure out what phase are we in. And I think that it's like all three at once. Like we're experiencing it's all like kind of a result of one another. It's like we're destabilized, therefore we're demoralized, and also the normalization of both is occurring. And so I'm more interested in what is the synthesis they're trying to develop to offer to us that we see as the perceptive solution. Right.
Another super chat here from another dumb beam bro. got love for you. It says V2K equals voice to skull, aka voice of God weapon tech, right? I know there's a guy that went on Sean Ryan's show. This had to be a few years ago, but he was this Antarctica firefighter contracted, to go down there and serve that position. But he was also kind of like, hey, they're working on some crazy stuff down here. Obviously, this could be psyop. This, whatever.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, he's a CIA affiliate. Yeah. Sean Ryan is a former CIA.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
It's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it wild, man? What a life. But the voice to skull tech rang a bell in my head when I've read Serge Manask's book. He's the one that kind of developed Project Bluebeam, and it's not just about a fake light show in the sky, but really there's a few phases that come before that, and it's hoaxed excavations, basically pointing to what I was talking about with the Sphinx and all of this, that there's an origin story and that there's a knowledge. And anyways, these things could be hoaxed 100%. I think that the military and just the departments of government have the capabilities to do these things. There's a lot of money that goes missing that we put into as taxpayers, and we don't know what that money's been used for. But one of the things a few other things he talks about is, that there's going to be like earthquakes, but these are manufactured earthquakes. They have the technology to do this. And what it'll do, it'll make basically these hoax kind of rise up to the top of the surface. But then he also says that they have like this technology to where they can directly communicate to your mind, and that this was something that was developed by the Russians, where they were basically creating an algorithm for each specific person based off of their DNA and all kinds of other stuff, to where that gives them the ability to pick and choose groups that they want to send this message to or whatever. And so I see a lot of criticism that people, say about Project Bluebeam and all this kind of stuff. But then I'm like, hey, it's still on the table for me, right? Like, this could be what it is that they're trying to do or what they have planned out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bluebeam, it again, that gets into the realm of like trying to discern like exactly what it is. Bluebeam, I think certainly like speculatively is something to consider, that there is going to be something like that where, it appears as if this is what's going on, like, faking a return of Christ or something like that. And I mean, I take those guys with a grain of salt, because I think the whole thing is psyoped. Any kind of guest on those shows, Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, all these guys that are, controlled op. It certainly seems very revelatory. But, I question, like, why do these guys even have a major platform where they're allowed to have these like whistleblowers on that are exposing such secrets?
And those guys could be psyoped.
Yeah, and they mostly are. Yeah, I mean, they're coming, like, that's why what they're saying is so interesting, because it's like, oh, wow, these are like, we're not supposed to know about this. These are central intelligence secrets that they're disseminating to the public now. So yeah, I think that's I'm very skeptical about that kind of stuff. I look at it, I pay attention to it to some degree, because like for that reason, it's like, why are we being being let in on this? That's more of what I'm interested in, is like, why is it? That is what I was asking about the Epstein files. It's like, why are we even being let in on this? Like, what the government was the government's the institution that released the Epstein files. Like, if we're questioning everything the government does, we should be questioning like why we're even getting access to these files. Like, this also plays into our topic here, the manufactured awakening, right? It's like, what is the purpose of disclosing this stuff to the public, and having us believe that we're being let in on this esoteric secret? It's the mass unocculting of these previously occulted secrets. It's like this mass exoteric project, and it's like, why is that happening? A lot of like what we're talking about, like the mainstreaming of these things is very suspicious to me. Like why they're being discussed and disclosed in such a public manner by these subversive actors, you know. So I question all of it. Like,
Yeah.
we can't trust any of these guys, you know.
I know, man. I know it.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
man.
chaos agents. Like that, you were talking about chaos magic. Like these guys are chaos agents.
Well, we were talking about it in the green room before the show. You know, you've been on X, you know, for a while, and I just started getting into it, and it's like I'll get these times where I just feel like I'm on X too much because it's just chaos. Like it's just so much that I'm being blasted with, and I almost
It's automated chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is not good for my soul. This is not good
it's not.
for my health, my mental health, right?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, and we subject ourselves to it because we think that the more time we spend on it, the more we're going to start to figure stuff out, and we're going to be in the know about certain things. I've been on X for a while, and you know, like I said, I grew my account to the extent that it is 55 something thousand followers, but from talking about conspiracy theories. Like there should be no reason why my account grew so big by talking about such things. And that is very suspicious to me. And the more your account grows, like the more you are subjected to this stuff. Like you start to see these replies that are just like really off the wall. And like, it's constantly testing your discernment, your patience, your, I mean, the whole thing is programmed for addiction, right? Like all these platforms are now like addiction is embedded into them because of the way that they're designed. It's all about retention metrics. So it's like the platforms, like if it's free, you're the product, right? And so we're the products. Our attention is being outsourced to these algorithms essentially, and we're being used for, you know, it's all data collection, right? So it's like anything we engage in, we don't even have to post on X. Like just by you scrolling and engaging with stuff, it's learning about what you like and what to put in front of you more. I think it's very dangerous. I think that's something people don't really talk about that much because, again, they're kind of sucked into this whole thing where it's like, well, it's just an information mechanism where I can learn more about what's going on and be in the know, be on ground zero of what's happening, right? Everything breaks on Twitter. So, yeah, it's something we need to be very careful about. I'm kind of like at my wit's end with it, to be honest. I'm always entertaining the idea of just logging off completely. And, you know, it doesn't get better. The more followers you get, it gets worse, honestly. So I kind of like envy these smaller accounts who don't have really anything going on, and they're just observers, I guess. But yeah, it's just really tough temptation to deal with.
Yeah. And shout out to the people that support us on the platforms that we have, you know, and all of this. It kind of keeps us in the game a little bit, right? Because there's information that I know you like to get out there, and I like to get out there, that I think ultimately it serves something for the kingdom of God. It serves something for at least trying to advocate for the truth in some way. And it's dirty, dude. There's a lot of weeds everywhere, you know, and it's just, it's rough, man. But, you know, I appreciate you, man. I think you've got a great stamina. I think you've got a very good perspective on kind of what's going on. I really enjoyed this conversation. Another dumb meme bro says Sean Ryan is a literal MK Ultra CIA spook, gray area, who was on Nephilim podcast, outed Sean Ryan years ago. His producer left due to this. Wow. See, this is stuff that I don't know, you know, I mean, because I think we all kind of have our little niche, you know. God's using us in certain ways. We have interests in other things that are different than other people. And so we're all kind of serving a purpose here, I ultimately think.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, I mean, I don't even watch, like a lot of people reference these podcasts and stuff. I don't even know what they are. Like, I don't watch this stuff because I think it's like, I don't trust any of these people. There's a lot of crossover with like New Age and these people that are talking about similar topics that we cover, and it's like you don't really know where they're coming from. A lot of them, I've been invited on podcasts like this that are like, the host is one of these guys who believes that all of Christianity is like this Gnostic psyop or something. Like, it gets really into the weeds with stuff. And I don't think just because we're talking about the same things that we are viewing reality the same way. I think that it can become very dangerous to expose ourselves to just anyone who seems to be touching on these topics, like, because it's mostly, again, chaos magic. So.
Right. And what's crazy, man, just like the serpent in the garden, there was some truths to what he said, but ultimately there was a narrative that he was, or there was almost like he wanted to deceive you with this psyop so that hopefully you could see that a majority of it was true. And then so you could kind of like turn away from God, worship him in some sort of way. And I think just in general, that's kind of like how psyops work, where these people, they'll feed us some information that we're like, oh yeah, I've researched that. He's right about that. But what is the overlay that he's ultimately carrying with the message? There's people out there that are pushing a Gnostic narrative, but they're talking about the Illuminati. They're talking about the Freemasons. They're talking about all these things that we see as that we would agree with.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
There's baggage with it, man, that we can't see, that's kind of hidden, that they're going to just throw on us at one point. Or maybe it's just one video that they make that at least they can grab the retention and the attention from just a few, right? And then get them to kind of agree with their ultimate goal. But and then so another dumb meme bro came back with another super chat saying, correct, the Russians used the Durga 2 radar system with scalar waves, the same system. The US also uses radar for this. They need either an fMRI brain print of your DNA. This is the same tech used to find the man down in Iran. Yes, it's crazy, really, the technology that we have.
Yeah,
and
it's just military technology being leveraged against it. Yeah, I mean, that's what the algorithms are that are on social media. It's all military technology. Like we're kind of like the test dummies for it.
Right, man. Brother, this was an awesome episode, man. Thank you so much for knocking out, a few hours with me. This was the first time I had you on. This is the first time we really got together, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Shout out to everyone that blessed with super chats. That is awesome. I like hearing the input from the audience too, because these are a lot of things too that I haven't heard of, or just a little bit of a unique perspective that I haven't glanced at yet. So thank you for all of that. Anthony, especially to you, brother. Thank you. Another one in here real quick from another dumb meme bro says, the serpent said, ye shall be as gods, plural. The only gods of the Old Testament were demons. So Satan wasn't lying. He was being deceptive, essentially telling them you'll be like us, the demons. That is wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. And that there's something to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, Satan is the deceiver. Like we often think of him as like he's just lying, but he's actually just taking what's true and twisting it because he's a deceiver.
Right. And this kind of gets into where, Genesis 6, fallen angels, Nephilim, all of this kind of stuff. There's a kingdom ultimately that I think he wants to establish. So it's something to look out for, and put the binoculars up and try and hone in on the target with all of this. Thank you again. Another dumb meme bro. Much love. I love the support. Thank you so much, Anthony, brother. Thank you, man. Where can the folks? I tell you this. If there's any last message you want to share with the audience, man, the airtime is all yours. And then we'll come into, plug in your stuff and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. I mean, just start building. This is, if you really believe in this stuff, if you really believe this stuff is coming to fruition, take action. Don't just be a passive consumer. Start building parallel societies, network with other Christians and build, things in preparation for what's coming, whatever you think that might be. I mean, it's going to involve being self-sustaining. So it definitely doesn't hurt to start prepping in a literal sense, start, preparing for their like all this stuff being gone, the internet, the grid, all this stuff. Like just start preparing for the worst case scenario, I think is probably the safe approach. And even if it doesn't happen in your lifetime, someone, your descendants will inherit whatever you build and create for them to prepare. So yeah, I think that's kind of all I got. But thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. This is an interesting discussion. Yeah, you can find me on, like I said, Substack is my main platform there on thereversion.co. I also do live streams similar to yours. We just kind of cover deep dives on the, what we're talking about here, all this kind of stuff. And I'm on YouTube, Anthony Westgate. And yeah, Twitter, if you want to tread into that territory there. Not sure how long I'll be on there, but yeah, it's I think I try to guide people towards Substack because I have actual control there, because when you sign up, you're on the newsletter, and if I get nuked from there, well, I can just email everyone and say where I am from there. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like seek out decentralized solutions to all this, whether it's technology or IRL stuff, like decentralized.
Right, man. I'm with you with that, and also too, you said something, and it's just prepare, right? Well, I mean, what God told me a few years ago, He really put it on my heart, and it was heavy, man. I didn't know really what to do with it, but I just followed His voice, and it was ultimately He was telling me build an ark, and it takes a long time to build an ark. And it's a lot of work. And what Noah did, by he knew that there was a flood coming, didn't know exactly when it was coming, which is kind of like how we can see things today. We don't know exactly when these things are going to arrive on the scene, but just chip away, have fun with it, start gardening, do whatever it is you got to do, have fun with it, because really I think that's what we were ultimately created for, was to learn these things and to have fun and to do these things. So yeah, if that's any encouragement for anybody, it's fun. Start building an ark, not an actual physical ark, but something to where you can, like you said, decentralization, where when I look at my compound or whatever, it's kind of like it's my own government, it's my own security systems, it's my own food, water, energy grid, stuff like that. Now it's hard for some people to do that, because we're kind of restricted with either income or this or that, but there's little things we can do. And it's like you said too, man, it's about coming together and trying to get the message of the gospel out there, and trying to outreach to others the truth, man. So, brother, thank you so much, man. This was a lot of fun. Again, shout out to the chat, shout out to the super chats. This was an awesome episode. Anthony, just hang out with me, and I'll chat with you a little bit in the green room. But with all that, we're wrapping it up. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It is a pretty cool show, one of the better shows that I've done in a while. And so if anyone wants to support the Biblical Hitmen, head on over to patreon.com/the Biblical Hitmen. It's where you can get all of your ad-free early access and direct chats with me. But if you want to support the free side of things, just head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, and carry that over to the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify. You can find the show on there as well. But that's it, everybody. Thank you so much. This was a fun stream. Shout out to everybody from both audiences. Okay. I hope everyone has a good day and stay blessed.